And to discuss the issue of gene patenting, I was joined a short time ago from Perth by the Federal Labor member for Fremantle, Melissa Parke, and from our Parliament House studio, Liberal Senator Bill Heffernan. Thank you both very much for being there.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Melissa Parke, if I can start with you, tell us what's motivated you to bring this legislation on now?
Well, I think the fundamental issue is that genes contain fundamental information about the human body that should be freely available to people everywhere. It should not be locked up in the hands of private corporations. At the moment, we have a situation where corporations can take out patents over human genes and thereby monopolise those genes. Now, this is wrong on so many different levels. It's wrong because genetic information belongs to all of us and should not be the subject of private property. It's wrong as a matter of legal principle because it is a fundamental principle of patent law that there must be an invention, and clearly no one invented our genes. They are products of nature, not the product of any corporation. And it's wrong as a matter of public policy to allow the exclusion of health researchers and clinicians from having access to genes that they need to be able to diagnose disease and to be able to develop new treatments, medicines and vaccines.
So are you saying that your government was somehow ill-advised when it put through legislation just a couple of months ago that touched on this area?
Well, not at all. The Raising the Bar bill made some very important improvements and reforms to the intellectual property system across the board, but it did not deal with patentable subject matter. It did not deal with the issue of gene patents. And so that's an omission that I'd like to see rectified and which the health community in Australia would like to see rectified.
Bill Heffernan, there have been patents on genes for more than 30 years in virtually every industrialised country. So why have successive governments all over the world not acted sooner to ban these patents on genes?
Well, it'd be fair to say, as has just been pointed out, that the patent law is clear that you're not in the business, or you shouldn't be in the business, of patenting discovery, and yet the broad interpretation of the patent law has allowed inventive work with a commercial and a useful purpose to include the discovery work, which is the gene. And I have to say the recent court decision by the Supreme Court in a unanimous decision in the United States has really brought this to the bear, and I think the public are becoming aware, and certainly the Supreme Court has sent back the Myriad case to a lower court of appeal and instructed the lower court of appeal, that is a full bench in a unanimous decision of the Supreme Court in the United States, to go back and use the law in the way it was designed to be used. And this has given a new interpretation and absolutely put light on the law that for many years has been misinterpreted.
What is actually more relevant is the Myriad case that is before the Federal Court of Australia, where you have breast cancer patient Yvonne Darcy and Cancer Voices Australia, who have taken action challenging Myriad's patent over the breast and ovarian cancer genes. And I know which side of the battle I'm on, and I know which side of that battle the vast majority of the Australian community will be on.
And which side of the battle is the Prime Minister on? Will she be supporting the bill you want to propose in the Parliament?
Well, I'm working within the government and within the caucus to be able to achieve government support for this bill. I hope it will be a government bill, in fact, and I think it's good legal policy, and it's certainly good public policy. And it's really a reflection of the deep concern that I have and that many of my fellow caucus colleagues have about this important matter of health. The health community is saying to the biotechnology industry, you can patent the cure, you can patent the treatment, you can patent the vaccine, you can patent the medicine, but don't patent the gene, because that belongs to all of us.
Bill Heffernan, you tried to put up a similar legislation 2 years ago which failed. Why do you have more confidence that it might be more successful this time?
Two things. The bill that's proposed by Melissa is a narrower bill, which, I mean, the bill that failed didn't fail necessarily on all its merits. There were some concerns about the broad interpretation of that bill. We've learnt from that. and Melissa's bill is much more confined to the actual genetic material, and also we have the reinforcement of the proposition at law by an unanimous decision now of the Supreme Court in the United States.
Can I just say, give some examples of some very real health impacts that have been felt in the Australian community from these gene patents. In 2008, Genetic Technologies sent lawyers' letters to all Australian public laboratories ordering them to stop testing for breast cancer, claiming they had the sole right to do so under a patent that it held. We had the Chiron Corporation, which held the patent over the hepatitis C virus gene and thereby prevented the development of further and better tests for hepatitis C for 10 years. We had the case of Westmead Hospital, which is where doctors are sending children's samples to Scotland for epilepsy testing rather than paying the exorbitant fees that are demanded by Genetic Technologies, which holds the licence for the patent here in Australia. Much of the research that has gone into identifying the genes, discovering the genes that have led to the patents is actually publicly funded. If you look at the Myriad case, Myriad was only able to patent the breast cancer gene because it capitalised on 16 years of publicly funded research by Professor Mary Claire King at the University of California, who discovered the breast cancer gene on the human chromosome 17q. And so, it's like Myriad has been able to come in and claim first prize in a marathon when it's only run the last 10 metres.
But the argument, isn't it, from the biotech companies that they need certainty around their investment generation, that they need to be able to say to investors, and particularly in a country like Australia that is hungry for foreign investment in areas other than the mining sector, that they need to be able to say with some certainty that we have exclusive rights over this gene or that. That's the argument, isn't it?
It may well be the argument, but I mean, Brazil has demonstrated that it's a furphy. In fact, Brazil's enacted laws to tighten the field, and there are hundreds of millions of dollars going in with the various pharmaceutical companies into Brazil, despite the fact that they're tightening the laws. I mean, this is as simple as you can't patent the moon. It's discoverable. And to say that somehow you're going to restrict research when you're actually going to increase research, and it doesn't in any way impact, as Melissa said earlier, on the capacity to patent the inventive work which has a unique and commercial purpose. I mean, that the only bit we leave out of the patent is the gene, so other people can come along and do work on the gene without having to go through some sort of nightmare setup and what can be in multiple gene uses a patent thickened. I mean, people on a 6-month contract out at Westmead Hospital working their little souls out for the betterment of the human race don't have the capacity to argue with an army of lawyers.
Bill Heffernan, has your argument been persuasive within your own party? Does Tony Abbott support this bill?
Well, I think the proposition that we've put, Melissa and others like ourselves in both our parties, is that let's just go along gently and become informed, understand the arguments and understand the long-term benefits without being persuaded by armies of lawyers and snake oil salesmen and obviously people with vested interests who absolutely are in it for the money and not for the vocational guidance and for the cures to the ailments of human beings. I mean, you can take wood out of a tree and invent and do something with the wood, but you can't patent the tree.
When do you propose taking this bill to the Parliament, Melissa Parke?
Well, I'll be continuing to work within the government and within the Labor caucus to achieve support for this proposed ban on gene patents. And I am confident that because it is good public policy and it's consistent with legal principle, and particularly with very significant recent decisions from the United States Supreme Court and the United States government, that we will be acting in accordance with that.
Bill Heffernan, given the current particularly toxic nature of the Parliament, do you think it's going to be a difficult period to get such legislation through?
Well, I would have thought the long-term well-being of health for the human race should be put above politics, and certainly in this debate and in the Senate hearings thus far, in progressing this debate, in informing the public, the least consideration would be the political consideration. This is way above politics.
Okay, thank you very much to both of you for being here with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.